Welcome to the With You Rugby Podcast, designed to give you an in-depth look at the United States Rugby Foundation, including our grant programs and recipients, fundraisers, events, and much more. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Vizard, president of the United States Rugby Foundation, and I want to welcome you to another of our With You Rugby Podcast. And as we get closer to our 2023 U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which is set for Salt Lake City on Saturday, September 16th, we thought it'd be nice to get to know this year's Hall of Fame inductees and special award recipients just a little bit better. And today we welcome in a former rugby player who turned to refereeing and was chair of the Laws Subcommittee for nearly 20 years, is a past recipient of the Denis Shanagher Award, and is a 2023 U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Peter Watson. Welcome, Peter. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And Peter, where are you talking to us from today?
We're in my office at home in Waltham, Massachusetts, which is just outside Boston.
Okay.
I'm retired, so I can be home whenever.
Perfect. Hey, Peter, as we do with all our honorees, we get to know them a little bit better. So tell us about where you grew up and the sports you played as a kid.
I grew up in the Boston area almost entirely. My dad was a history professor, so a couple of years in Spain at various times, but basically Boston area. Sports, the main sport was ice hockey growing up. I moved to a town where that was the huge sport, and when I was about 7 or 8, and had a pond at the bottom of the hill that froze every winter, and we played hockey on. I carried that all the way through college. Other than that, the usual kid stuff, sandlot football, baseball, that kind of thing. And then in high school, lacrosse and soccer.
All right.
Oh.
Well, we have one thing in common. I love hockey too. I played hockey growing up in Michigan, so that's a great sport.
So you grew up in the same era that I did before they invented face masks.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So Peter, how did you get involved with the sport of rugby? How'd you get introduced to it?
Well, I was playing, for varsity hockey at MIT.
Okay.
My freshman year, the MIT rugby team won the New England Championship in the spring. And my buddy hauled me down to the party that they held on campus to celebrate that championship, which was, naturally held at one of the women's dorms, and was a tremendous party. And that said, if a sport has that kind of parties, I got to give it a try. And so next fall, I was out there.
Did you have to give up your hockey or no?
No, I didn't. I mean, it trimmed the tail end of the fall season and the beginning end of the spring season, because hockey still was, my primary focus. But, when hockey ended and rugby kept going.
Right.
Had a tremendous time, learning the game those first couple of years, which, is not easy when you don't have a formal coach.
Right. Oh, when one thinks of MIT, they don't think of it as a rugby powerhouse. I know you had some great teams in the 70s. Tell us about your playing time there.
Well, as every forward did, I was started out in the second row. That's, just follow the other guys around the field. You'll figure it out. And very quickly, they figured out that I didn't like being in the middle of the pack, because I was getting out of scrums before the flankers were. Won or lost, I was gone. And so they quickly moved me to back row, which is where I played most of my career. It was not your typical college team in that it wasn't restricted to undergrads. So we had a lot of grad students from all parts of the world playing, and the teams did well or less well depending on how the admissions department treated us.
Okay.
Fairly typically.
Okay. Well, from MIT, you went to Charles River Rugby Football Club. You played from 78 to 87 there. Was there a highlight or two from your time with Charles River?
Oh, absolutely. Other than the fact that, we were playing Division I rugby, which is, enjoyable. It meant we saw, good opposition, and teams that had 3 sides every weekend, which was tremendous. You don't see that often anymore. But a couple of really enjoyable tours over to the UK. One that was a total blur because I didn't realize until probably 6 days into a 10-day tour that we were drinking imperial pints, not American pints. Second time, people brought wives and girlfriends, and I ended up coming away from that engaged.
Okay. It works like that sometimes.
Sometimes it does.
Really,
an exciting thing to happen. So, got a lot of friends, still stay in touch with many of them. And with the 50th anniversary is coming up. So
nice. That'll be fun.
I look forward to.
Yeah, heck yeah. Now, you played the game for quite a few years, but it was as a referee and as a referee administrator that you made your mark on USA Rugby. How did you go from player to refereeing?
Well, the impetus at first was same thing that many people is that I injured out. Did a separated shoulder and spent a year rehabbing it, and went back and played half of a game and realized that things were pulling inside and it wasn't right for me to be still doing it. And I'd been, comfortable talking with referees for the past several years, known many of them, and had told them that, when I'm done playing, I'll take up refereeing. And so when I said, that's it, last game, done playing, within the week, I was given a law book, a whistle, and an assignment. This was, long before they had things like courses to teach you. It was just off you go. Here's your game. You figure it out.
And who are some of those referees in your early years of refereeing that influenced your career, that helped you along the way?
Well, I was lucky that we had a very strong society. We had two guys who were on the A panel when I started, Don Morrison and Kieran Gagan, and a number of other people who got pretty high, Kevin Hanley, Gary DeVoe, Fred Greenaway, all of whom were absolutely, wide open to talking, coaching. As my growth went along, the fact that Don was willing to answer phone calls in the middle of his workday and spend half an hour chewing through problems with me made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's, really, I think where the big learning happened. And then as I got better, I started having contacts in other parts of the country. A lot of peer consulting. The days before they had videos of,
Sure.
You'd look at the schedule and say, all right, who refereed Life last week? And you'd call them up and, what should I look for? What did they do? What did they do poorly? Any particular players that, have habits that need to be curtailed?
Yeah, I like that.
That sort of thing.
Right.
But it's always, I've always felt that even though refereeing is a solitary thing, you've got a team around you. And that was made clear to me early on by the leaders of my society, and something I've tried to, convey as things go on and I get a little bit, older and no longer refereeing.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were the chair of the Laws Subcommittee for USA Rugby for nearly 20 years. I hope I get that title right. What did that role entail, and what were some of the advancements that were made while you were chair?
Well, it's a lot of different aspects, all of which, connect in one way or another to the laws. As IRB and now World Rugby change the laws on a fairly regular basis. And so those need to be communicated to players and coaches and referees. Often they need to be interpreted and translated. turn, the cold language of the law into, how does this really affect me as a player? I remember that from when I was a player, the change from in tackle law. When I first played, if the ball didn't touch the ground, you weren't tackled. And I'm sure you probably remember that.
Sure.
And that was a huge jump. I came in into the Laws Committee just after they revised the rewrite in 2000, when the big change was that you could no longer enter tackles from any direction. Had to come in from your own side, and that took a lot of work. Things that I've seen since then. They experimented for about a year and a half or so when allowing players to drop mauls. It's an experiment that didn't go well, but we had to explain that. Another aspect of the job was producing the USA law book. As the USA printed their own law book and included a whole bunch of contact information and some guidelines on how to apply things, all part of the one big book. So it was involved in doing that for about 6 years before we realized that we could get copies of IRB law books a lot faster than we could print our own. Mm-hmm. The laws had changed the first of the year, and then our copy would go out sometime over the summer. And I convinced Ed Todd, who was the RDO at the time, that it would be more useful to simply buy and ship and get books into people's hands in February rather than June or September.
Sure.
We did that. At that time, the sale of law books was a major income source for the Referees and Laws Committee. And, we had to struggle to find a way to price it so that revenue stream continued until, shortly after that, all the finances in USA got combined into one big pot. Mm-hmm. So that no longer was an issue. Right. Ongoing, questions that people ask that aren't able to be answered clearly by their own society, or they get answered by their society and they don't like the answer, so they want to go up the chain to see if they can find a different answer.
It's always fun.
Yeah, that's why you always appoint one referee to be the head referee at any tournament playoff.
Right.
This is the person you go to for questions.
Yeah.
If you ask anybody else, they'll simply refer you to that person.
Now, Peter, you are also a referee coach. Tell us about how that came about and what it means to be a referee coach.
Well, referee coach is sort of a now role for me. I started out writing some sort of report on people probably 10 years before I stopped refereeing, because I was, I had a real motivation to get other referees better, because I was one of the assigners in New England. Mm-hmm. So the better the refs were, the better I looked. And over the years, the formats changed from just a very, very general plus, neutral, negative for each aspect down to grading things and being an evaluator, which is very different from being a coach. Coach is much more focused on the referee. Evaluator is focused on what happened in that game, be it good or bad. And we've evolved over the years. We do much less formal evaluating and much more working with the referee on a longer term basis. As I said, about my primary role was performance reviewer, but I also was asked to be a coach for a couple of referees. And when I say coach, I mean somebody who has a longer term relationship, 6 months, a year, 2 years, not just one game. And those went well and were actually quite rewarding.
Good.
One of my happy moments, throughout my career was with Anna McMahon, who, came back to national panel refereeing about 5 months after she had a baby, and was immediately, so this is February, and we live in New England, so we haven't seen grass since November, sent out to Arizona for a couple of high-level college games and struggled a little bit with them. So they took her off the assignment list for the rest of the spring and said, you need a coach. And I, suggested several people around New England that she could have as a coach, because we've got some good ones.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, I think I want you. So I worked with her the rest of the spring and the fall. And when we got to the WPL championships at the end of the fall, she was the one who shone on day one and was selected to referee the final. So
Good.
that's a tremendous reward.
Yeah, I bet.
Now what I'm doing in the coaching aspect, is the U.S. has set up formal coach pairings for every referee in the top 40. Which means there's about 20 coaches, and Dana Teagarden and I are working as coach the coaches. So we're the resource for them to help them through their little, I can't get through to this referee type questions.
Yeah, right.
So
that's
that's where coaching is taking me now.
What else on the referee front have you been involved with, or is it coaching the evaluator? I mean, is that an open? That's going to be too long of an answer, or what?
Well, no, it's I one that's big, which is referee training, and that has started back in '95 when the Referees and Laws Committee first rolled out formal courses, and Don Morrison made all the tour C1 and better in New England learn how to deliver this course. So gave that course, and then found myself on the training subcommittee of RLC, and then was sent to Dublin for a week to learn to be an IRB trainer, which is next level up from just running courses. That was, a tremendous experience. One of my highlights of my career, we had a class of 12 people, and they had it was being translated into 3 different languages, because people came from all over the world.
That's cool.
Well,
congrats.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, I did that, training and educating for, up until about 2000.
Okay.
When I said, I've done this for 25 years. It's time to step back from formal training.
I think another thing you must be proud of is in 2009, you were recognized by the Referees and Laws Committee as the recipient of the Denis Shanagher Award. Tell us about that award and what winning it meant to you.
The award was established by the RLC in, I think, 1990 to honor Denis Shanagher Sr., who was the first chair of the Referees and Laws Committee and was an international referee, A-panel referee, who's assigned to do U.S. New Zealand as an example, and then had to recuse himself because his son was selected to play for it. But that's what you got to do.
Right.
So this award is given to people who've done made long-term advancements or contributions to referees at the national level. Recipients include people like Ian Nixon and Don Reardon, who are A-panel referees for a very long time. Don Morrison, it'd take too long to list all of his accomplishments.
Sure.
Ed Todd, Jim Russell, and so Brian Porter. So it's a pretty impressive group to be included in. And it's also, pretty flattering that the selection committee is the people who have been given the Shanagher Award.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Now, Peter, refereeing is one of those thankless jobs in rugby that doesn't get its just due. What words of wisdom might you have for those thinking about picking up the whistle, or for those that already have the whistle in hand, but maybe are having second thoughts?
well, I guess the first thing I'd say is do it because you like it. Don't go crazy chasing grades, or say, I've got to get to referee MLR, or I want to referee in the World Cup. Those aren't things you can control. Have fun, find fun, enjoyment, benefit in every game you do, because it's certainly important to the players. And you can certainly walk away from any game saying, I made this game better. I helped them play a better game. That's the big thing that I would say to people who are, having doubts or wondering about motivation. For people who are also, considering it, do it sooner rather than later. There is a definite time limit on how long your body will let you referee at a good level. And, a couple more years at the tail end of a so-so playing career compared to adding a couple of years at the beginning end of a refereeing career, there's no comparison. I didn't start reffing until I was 32, 33. I wish I'd started 5 years sooner.
Now, Peter, of all your memories in rugby, be it as a player or a referee, is there one that stands above the rest?
It's hard to pick one, because there've been so many good ones, and there's so many good people I've had the privilege of working with. Probably the one that was the most awesome was the second Gloucester exchange. My society sends people over to Gloucester. I went over the first time back in the 90s, and when I went back just before COVID, second time, going as a ref coach that time, it's amazing how many people in Gloucester remembered that as an AR, I had radioed in a Gloucester offside in a Gloucester Army game.
I love that.
And the referee, he was great. He played advantage, didn't come, gave the penalty, and then looked over at me, put up his thumb, and said, "Hey, thanks, Touchy."
That's funny.
Yeah. But they remembered it 25 years later.
Good memories, yeah. Now, how about of all the matches you refereed, is there one that stands out, and why?
Well, can I pick two?
Sure.
Sure. One was the first Super League game I did, which was Life at Pack. That was played, in downtown Washington, surrounded by concrete buildings on a day that was something like 95 degrees. And long before it made its way into the law book, I told the guys before the game, we're taking a water break. I don't care what the laws say, you guys are going to need it. And so we did.
Okay.
And so that one was loads of fun. The other one, the USV Canada under 23 women's game that I did up at Saranac, when I had as my sideline crew three of the DRIPs, the developmental referee program, all of whom ended up making it to the U.S. national panel. So nice. Loads of fun doing that.
Good. And that DRIP, they couldn't come up with a better one, or?
No, I think we deliberately came up with that one.
Okay.
Developmental referee program, and so the participants were DRIPs.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Now, looking back on your rugby career, Peter, what are you most proud of?
Most proud of the people that I've helped who've succeeded. There's guys in the developmental referee program. The first 6 people in it, 5 made the U.S. national panel, and the 6th made the Canadian national panel. I mentioned, Anna McMahon, Olivia Rogers, who's now chair of the RLC. It's a lot of work with her when she was a referee. And 6 or 8 months ago on a WPL coaching call, she said something, and I came back, sent her a side message, said, "That sounds familiar." And she said, "Yep, you said it to me 15 years ago." And so seeing her and people like Lee Bryant, who have taken themselves from being really good referees to now, they're my peers in the referee coaching world. That's a success. That's really what I'm taking on. What I'm most proud of, I think.
Okay. And Peter, one final question: what does it mean to you to be selected for the United States Rugby Hall of Fame?
Wow, it's something that was totally unexpected. I remember in 2017 when I introduced Jim Russell when he was inducted, I was looking around and said, "Wow, yeah, Jim really deserves to be here." And never crossed my mind that 5 years later I'd be here. All I can say is you've raised my personal bar higher, because I'm not done yet. I'm not done doing things, and
Good.
And now, I need to, live up to this. I really appreciate being chosen for this great honor. Looking forward to seeing you in person in about a month and a half.
Yeah, I look forward to it too, Peter. And it is a well-deserved honor. And I too look forward to seeing you in person and sharing a beer with you. So congratulations once again, and thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Good to talk with you.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of our With You Rugby podcast. Please join us for more With You Rugby podcasts as we get closer to our U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame, which is set for Salt Lake City on Saturday, September 16th. For more information about the U.S. Rugby Foundation and our Hall of Fame, please visit our homepage at usrugbyfoundation.org or visit us on social. Until next time, everyone, stay safe.